I don't know how many times I got to tell my members and people, especially the first time coming in, I was like, you want to get better at this stuff?
Yep.
Perform well here, right? Break your central nervous system down here, put a heavy barbell on your back, load in the front rack, let's pull a heavy, let's feel good here first and foremost. You want to feel taxed. You want to feel beat up in this portion, in our strength portion, whatever it might be, to get to that next level where you can move quickly through these workouts and it doesn't seem like it's a 20-minute workout anymore when it should be a 10-minute workout for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Lionheart Radio. We are currently in the beginning stages of summer, and it doesn't matter if you are a gym rat or a weekend warrior or an endurance athlete or some combination of all of them, kind of like myself. Everybody has one thing on their mind, and that is looking good naked. Everybody wants to look good and have some payoff for all of the hard work that they're doing behind the scenes. Everybody at Lionheart Radio is no different, from the host to the people that we have working behind the scenes. Now, if there is one thing that separates us apart, it's essentially the fact that we are not willing to sell you any bullshit. So what we've done is we've taken out the whole crash diet. We've saved you the 6 weeks to the next six-pack plan. And we've taken all of the knowledge that we have, collectively pooled it together, and put it in a document, a book, that you can download for free on lionheartrad.io. In that book, we have things that are going to help you get sustainably lean. We've got which workouts will help you burn more fat. We have tips on how to keep track of your daily calories and nutrition. And we've even got a glossary in the back with a list of movements and how you can plug them into your programming when you are looking for a desired result. Now, just like the show, everything is free. Go to lionheartrad.io and download your free ebook. As always, thank you for taking this journey with us. We will see you in the gym or at the beach.
Dude, I've been taking class. That's it right now. And then I've been trying to run, seriously.
Yeah.
It's like I started running a month ago. Yeah, I started actually like saying, all right, 10 minutes this week, 15 minutes this week, and I'm now up to about 25. Yeah, I'm supposed to be hitting 25s this week. I haven't fucking done one yet, but I tried to do it 3 times.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Actually, that's a perfect, we'll start with that. So, all right, yeah. All right, if you're just tuning into this, welcome to Lionheart Radio. I'm your host, Rick Alexander, founder of Lou Aviv in San Diego, California. And finally, for once, I'm actually in San Diego, California, and I'm here at Stay Classy CrossFit with my buddy Pete.
What's up, bud?
So, for those of you guys that don't know, and we haven't publicized it too much, but I publicly called Pete out on Instagram the other day. He knew it was going to happen, but essentially what we decided is if I qualify for Wadapalooza, which is a CrossFit competition in Miami, then Pete will run a 50-mile ultramarathon with me.
Dude, and it's, you know what the funny part was? When I saw that post, I go, yeah, absolutely. It's like a physical challenge. I was like, of course. It's like, I got this all day, right? No problem. 50 miles, yeah. The thing is, I didn't really calculate it as well as I should have, because automatically I go, well, marathons, I was like, I've never ran a marathon. That's 26 miles.
Have you done a half?
I've never done a half.
Yeah.
I think the most running I've done in a competitive setting was actually with you at the Granite Games.
Yeah.
And that was like
4 miles. It was a brutal 4 miles.
It was.
After the ski erg.
It was. Yeah. Honestly, and the thing is, I'm such a head case when it comes to long distance running.
Yeah, you definitely got to get out of your own head.
Yeah, but I'm trying my best to get used to it. Anyway, so I saw the post and I was like, I got this, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I blew it by some people and they're like, you know how long that actually is? I was like, that's like the distance of like northern like County San Diego all the way down to the border. I'm like, oh, I was like, I would never want to run that, let alone like ride a bike that distance.
Right.
But
no, it'll get real for you for sure. I have different advice than most people. I say don't run a marathon because if you run a marathon first of all, you're not going to gain enough fitness that'll make it worth it. Right. If you just, and then the second thing is you're going to know how much that marathon sucked, and then you're not going to want to run another fucking marathon. True. You're going to be like, because you're going to finish, you're going to be like, dude, no way.
Now I got to double that, right?
Oh. So it's better if you just train and go out and do it.
That's so true.
But I'm having the same problem too, because like you said, was it 2015 we competed in Granite Games together?
Yep.
which is similar to Wadapalooza. You've done Wadapalooza before, right?
I have, yeah. Back in actually the previous year that we actually did the Granite Games. So it was 2015, 2016?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That same year?
Yeah, same year. Yeah.
So, same thing for me. I'm like, I'll just qualify for Wadapalooza. And I'm like, in my head, I've qualified for Granite Games. I'm like, I can fucking CrossFit. I've CrossFitted forever. But lately, I've been doing nothing but... I lift a lot, but when you're doing concurrent strength training and endurance training, it's not the same as that time modality where you're in that like 10 to 20 minute range,
right,
where you're all out.
Yep.
And the problem that I'm starting to realize now is from not going into that well for so many years, I don't know if it's there anymore. And I gotta retrain.
No, it's funny, and it's just like the way that we describe CrossFit is just like like I said, constantly varied functional movements, high intensity. It's like these jack of all trades, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to apply this to a general physical preparedness. The reality is just like if you're not really focusing on that single modality like endurance running or distance running or something like that, CrossFit might be great for you as far as establishing a good strength basis and maybe a little bit of that fitness level, but
sure.
The reality is just like you're still not going to have the ability to run that 15 miles unless you're just trying to crush yourself, right?
Right.
It's like, you might be able to stumble through it just because you are a fit person, but the reality is it's like you need to be spending time hitting those certain mile markers and certain time domains. So it's crazy, but the reality is like it's not easy.
Are you familiar with the black box theory about CrossFit?
No.
So what they say, and I don't know if they say this anymore, but HQ used to push this a lot, is like whatever you put CrossFit in, and then what you get out of the black box is this constantly varied. So you have the ability to be a great power lifter, or they used to say like, oh, you could step on a bodybuilding stage. I feel like they've backed off from that stuff a little bit now.
Right.
But it's that method. If you put CrossFit in, so essentially if you just do CrossFit, you're going to have the ability to do all these things. And I think there is some level of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is just like, you can say yes and no, because at the same time, like I said, it's just like you have to be actually spending time in those actual fields. Spend the time. The reality is, it's like I might be a little bit more fit, a little bit more capable than, let's say, if I was just strictly doing bodybuilding, right? To perform an ultramarathon or perform a regular marathon, I would feel a little bit more comfortable where I am physically now versus what I was trying to do in the bodybuilding thing. It's just like it wouldn't be reality.
Yep.
Or powerlifting or just weightlifting, where it's like very structured in those training modalities. But the reality is, like with CrossFit, if I spend a little bit more time trying to swim more and I want to do an Ironman or something, I would feel a little bit more comfortable doing this kind of training.
Yep. And you've trained people for Ironmans, right? You just did.
I have, yeah. And it kind of goes back to the fact that I made him do a half maybe a month before. And
a half Ironman?
And half Ironman. And
okay.
he did phenomenal with it. Honestly, if he would have doubled his time, it was this big long bet and everything like that. Anyways, if he would have doubled his time, he would have come well within like the time he was shooting for.
Yep.
The reality is like we just didn't have a ton of time to get him to where he needed to be.
Okay.
It was a blast. It was a learning experience for myself because I've maybe worked with one other person when it came to like long distance stuff and some of the mental challenges that are involved with it, but also the body breakdown and things of that nature. But when I ran them, I did only sprints, so I only knew like these shorter distances, never these Ironman.
Which is a different animal.
Exactly. And after watching him complete the Ironman, he concreted like my decision to never want to do this. It was just I saw how miserable they were at the end of the thing, and it's just like you feel like there's so much pageantry and like excitement at the end of these things, but these guys are crawling across the line, maybe seeing their wife, maybe a kid, and nobody's there because it's ass late at night. Right. Nobody cares.
Yep.
They've already gone home. It's cold.
Yep. And
these guys are just like stumbling like zombies right over the finish line. It was, but more power to them.
Right.
It's something that they tasked out to do for themselves, and the majority of them kind of make it, but it just didn't look like fun, man. Physically, they just looked like
dog shit.
Oh, worse.
Yeah. I actually wrote this a little bit about this in my book, this concept, because I think people, they want to take these big undertakings and they think, so if you go watch a marathon scenario is there's people lined up on both sides of the, right? Because they only have to be there for 4 hours and they're yelling. And, it's hard to even want to quit if you have that much enthusiasm.
Yeah.
CrossFit's the exact same way. When you compete in CrossFit, it's such a short time domain. All the other athletes are around you. Even if you're taking the longest to finish, you've got the most support that you could imagine on both sides screaming. So you always pick up the bar, you always do one more rep. Same thing with running a marathon. But when you start getting into these ultra distance events like that, it's not that marathon scenario. Like, there's fucking nobody around.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing. And it's just like, of course, there's a certain energy. And I've talked to people that have done New York, of course, the Boston and things like that, even the one here in San Diego, to where it's just like they're pumped the entire time.
So much energy.
Because there's like, you're running through the city, people are screaming for you the entire time, and you want to do well because you're just harnessing a lot of that great energy and just moving along. I mean, but the thing is, we did this probably end of the season for them. You're not getting these longer nights, right? The sun's going down quicker. And these guys are out there with like headlamps on, and they're just stumbling through the dark by themselves. God only knows what's going through their head at that point, right? And it's just like, it looks miserable, and it's like, it's a different level of mental like preparedness that you really have to have for yourself, because you're not relying on that like external like go and like cheer the cheerleaders that are involved in some of those marathons.
So I mean, I just ran Boston like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I ran the final mile in like 6:40 something. It was just people on both sides screaming, like, you got like goosebumps.
Oh, absolutely.
People are yelling so hard. People are waving American flags. It's fucking awesome. But so, knowing what you know now, and I'm actually really interested in your answer, because I'm training a guy for his first Ironman right now. And I think he's way in over his head. But this will air after he does it, so I'm in the clear. But I'm interested in, now knowing what you know, how can you train somebody for that mental piece without breaking them down, right?
Right. And honestly, the biggest component, outside of their physical capabilities, where they are on their fitness level, and just the expectations of time, if they don't have that mental fortitude to get through something like that, it's a big no. Case in point is the guy I just worked with, because I'll let you know, his profession relies a lot on his ability to kind of sit through like longer distances, just be in a flow state where he's in the zone the entire time. And I got that from him. I got that understanding, and he was capable. I knew it. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, this guy's gonna finish. He'll finish. I don't know if he'll finish under the time.
You just knew he had the mindset.
Exactly. He had the basically the Pete, I don't care. It's like, you'll drag me across this thing, but you're not going to pull me off the course. And that's probably, honestly, if you're trying to work with somebody that just doesn't have that, that will be the biggest hurdle for the both of you. And that's the reality. It's like, outside of that, it's like, okay, I know the guy is willing to commit to something like this. Now, can I take his genetics? Can I take what he has been provided as far as like an athlete or human being is concerned, and get him to that place in this short time? So I mean, that's honestly, if mentally he's not there, if he's not focused and completely into this thing, it's not going to happen.
So you think that mental toughness can't do you think it can be fostered to a degree, or you think it comes innate?
You know what, and that's the thing. It's like, after knowing the gentleman, it probably took 2 to 3 training sessions, right? There was zero complaining. I would have told the dude to run through a brick wall, and he would have. It would have made him like a faster swimmer. And I got that within probably 2 to 3 sessions to make sure I understood where he was at as far as like the mental game. It's just like, there was zero complaining. He didn't ask and he didn't question too much, but when he did, it was all pointed to what we were trying to do. We were trying to get into that place. And I knew it, right? If I would have continued in that fashion and got like those little tidbits of just the takeaway, like, oh man, I don't want to do this at this hour. Like, can we do it tomorrow? If there was a lot of that going on, I'd be like, dude, call up your guy. We're not going to do this.
So that's actually almost a different problem, right? That's like, you almost have to take somebody like that, because I think I'm that way, and you have to like pull them back.
Exactly. Because
they're going to hurt themselves by going too hard.
Yes. And I mean, we get it in CrossFit too all the time. You have to protect people from themselves.
You do.
Egos get in the way all the time. People's thought ability. It's like, oh, I used to do this when I was a kid. I can do this now. I haven't been in the gym for 2 years. I haven't been swimming in God knows how long. It's like, oh, I'll figure it out. And the reality is, like, as a good coach, a good trainer, you really got to temper them in pulling the reins back a lot of the time and saying, hey, let's pump the brakes here. We'll get it tomorrow. Or just trust the programming and the way we have it laid out.
I think you see that a lot when you're new to the sport too. Especially if they were athletic growing up. Like, that was my exact scenario. I was athletic growing up, like, all-state lacrosse player, went to college, played sports in college, And you were the same way.
Yeah.
But you were a little more pragmatic, I think. And I got into it, and I'm like, I'm fucking going to the games. I'm definitely going to the games. I conquer everything.
No, it's so true. It's so true. And I think we relied a lot on just our abilities naturally as athletes some of the time, and myself still included. It's just, things come easier sometimes to us than others,
Right.
I walked into a yoga class the other day, and I'm like, I hate this, but I need this. The reality is just like, I'm not built for it completely. Now, is it the fact of the matter, maybe my ego on the way, and I always want to be great at something, whatever I'm doing? Yes, absolutely. But the reality is just like, I can't expect to be at that certain level if it's not there. Right. So, yeah, I mean, it happens all the time especially with athletes, but then just with your general public, those type A personalities where they're just competitive as fuck, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to make this happen. I don't care if I'm limitless after this thing. But it's tempering that, absolutely, and telling people to slow the fuck down sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's why CrossFit grew so fast, is because it spoke to a whole generation of people that had finished playing sports in college and wanted that next thing and weren't getting it from running sprint triathlons or 5Ks on the weekend.
That's so true. And the funny part is, after I got done with school, I tried the bodybuilding route.
Did you?
I did it for, maybe a year. I signed up for one, totally bailed on the entire thing because I was just like, I don't know if it was just maybe the mental preparation, but I suck at food, dude. I'm terrible. It's like, I'm naturally a lean dude, but the reality was just like, I couldn't get my head wrapped around the science, like the basis behind it all, with like the counting the calories, prepping the meals. It's just like, I'm not good at those things, and that was the reality. And I hated the fact that half the assholes in the the industry has great people. I'm not going to say that they don't, but the reality is just like, there's a lot of people I just didn't appreciate. And so I was like, is this life now? Is this what I'm gearing myself towards outside of college? It's like, I'm an athlete, man. It's like, I want to still apply that. And it's like me posing on stage. That's like not the best avenue, right? So then that's why I got into a little bit of the shorter distance tries.
Yep.
But there's only so much swimming you can do, only so much running you can do, and only so much biking too. You're just like, Iron Man.
Yeah, you get bored.
Yeah,
you get bored.
Yeah. So, I'm nothing against all those guys that find that as their niche or their I want to say like basically their
outlet, right?
Yeah, their outlet to fitness. It's great. It's absolutely a whole lot better than sitting their asses on the couch. But the reality is, it just wasn't for me. And I think it's just like our generation found it through a little bit of CrossFit, especially those guys that were athletes and now still get to apply it in some way.
Yeah. Bodybuilding's, that's a tough route anyway. I was actually just talking to someone last night about that because she coaches people in nutrition specifically to get on stage, and it's like, you put in so much work in order to have it be subjective. So even for me, when I was training CrossFit a ton, you know, local competitions, which when you're not at the games level, you kind of live for those local competitions until you get to the Wadapalooza type level, right?
Yep.
So at first you live for those, and when a ref doesn't, or a judge doesn't count your toes to bar, and you're like, God damn it, this isn't subjective. I trained for this. I touched the fucking bar. You know?
That's so true. No, absolutely. And it was so funny because you got so much of that. I was just like, hold on. Who the fuck do I have to blow in order to freaking get on the stage and win this thing? It's just like, is that the reality right now?
And
it's like,
is.
I thought I had no clue until I was just like, oh. I was like, you're correct. It's like, you have to play nice with some of these people. And the reality is, like, I'm putting in the hard work, I'm putting the effort. Why wouldn't I win? But the reality is, just like, it's not that way sometimes.
It's not. It's subjective.
Yeah, it's very subjective.
Yeah, we had a girl that we sponsored with Lou Aviv for a while, and I think she's still trying to get her pro card, and she's putting in so much work.
Yeah.
And she would work and work and work, and then she would get to the stage, and they were like, you gotta change this one thing, whatever it is, definition in your delts, let's say. And then she would be like, all right, work for fucking another delts, cycle. Right? Come back, and they would be like, posterior chain's underdeveloped. And it's like, dude, how long can you take this for?
And the thing is, that's probably what I liked least about it, was the fact it's like, they really hone in on the fact that you feel like good about your body, but then the reality is, like, they start poking and prodding. It's just like, how, what does that do to one's ego? What does that do to one's like self-esteem? And I know it's probably a whole hell of a lot worse with the women's side, but the reality was just like, dude, do I really have bad glutes? And you start really staring at yourself all funky in the mirror, and you're like, man, I feel good. It's like, no, okay, it's not there, I guess not. And then you start really questioning, like, you know, what does your body look? What's the aesthetic and stuff like that? And it's tough, man. It's real tough.
Yeah, when you think about it, I mean, it's got to be the most unhealthy like thing that's rooted in fitness, right?
You know, but he used to be like this great testament of fitness. I loved watching Arnold get on stage, man, and just like his ability to kind of stay in that physique, you know, year round and things of that nature. I know like there were certain things outside of that were involved, but the reality is just like, you know, that was like a true testament of fitness. You got this freaking warrior walking up on stage,
right,
this superhuman, and he just keeps himself that big, you know, he keeps himself that lean, you know. That was his size. Of course, you know, the genetics were there, but the reality is just like that was a true testament of fitness. Now it's just like, see how big you can fucking get, and then dehydrate the shit out of yourself, like make your skin look like leather. It's like, and I hate speaking poorly of any other like.
Well, I think it's lost its appeal a lot for that reason.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just like there's so much more involved with the politics, I think, too, at the same time.
Yeah.
But everybody's trying to everybody's chasing some kind of paycheck that just isn't there first and foremost. But the reality is just like the endorsements. You know, they want their thing, but it's not there. It really isn't. It wasn't for me. So
I was watching the Olympia last year, and I'm like looking at the stage, and I'm like, how do you fucking know? How do you tell these guys apart?
Yeah, no, and it's like, and I get it. You just like, you're not in the sport for long enough, but that's the reality. It was just like, okay, yeah, maybe his chest is a little bigger than that guy's, or his hamstrings are a little bit more developed. But the reality is just like, they both look fucking great.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how would you pick between the two of them?
Right.
You know?
And we're probably painting with a broad brush, but I do think it's just so subjective. That's got to be annoying as hell. But you do a lot of fitness modeling, right?
I do. It's like it correlates a little bit with that stuff. The reality is just like I'm always trying to keep myself in like they say photo ready. Mm-hmm. But the reality is just like I found like the best avenue for that has been CrossFit. I got these guys all the time. I'll show up to these shoots or show up to these castings, and they're like, "Oh, dude, I just didn't dehydrate enough the night before," or it's just like, "I don't feel great about this. I ate this cheeseburger." I'm like, "Dude, I just destroyed a burrito in the parking lot, man." It's like I'm fine to walk in here right now and do this stuff.
Right.
I know there's certain aesthetics with it too at the same time, and it's so funny once they line you all up and you all kind of look like kind of cookie cutter almost in these castings, and you go, "Oh, they look all exactly like me." But they will, you know, those casting managers or casting directors and stuff like that, they'll sit there and pick you apart. They're like, dude, it's like shoulders aren't big enough, or you know, it's like we gotta get bigger arms on this guy, and it's just like you're looking at him and like, it's really, I mean, it's a jab, you know. But the reality is like, I feel like half the time they're looking at us, I'm like, you know, we're human beings over here, right?
Right.
We're talking about like people with like,
shit.
yeah, exactly, emotions,
right?
But yeah, no, it's tough, man. It's tough, and I know it's got to be a lot tougher for women too. At the same time, I do it as a one-off because it's just fun, man. It keeps things interesting. But the reality of it all, it's just like
you get to meet cool people and do cool things.
Yeah. Do work with some really cool companies, travel to really cool places and stuff like that. I mean, I'm blessed. I'd call my mom every day and be like, "Hey, dude." Or, "Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. Thanks for the genetics."
Yeah, for sure. As you should.
Yeah,
as you should. I'm in a fucking fist fight with my genetics every day, and you're just eating burritos, going into photo shoots. But the fact that you do train CrossFit, that's pretty counterintuitive, because I'd imagine most of the people in that field absolutely do not train.
Oh no,
that modality at all.
And it's so funny when I do get into these things and they ask me what I do for my arms, what kind of routine I'll do for my triceps, or it's like, "Hey, dude, how do I get my calves to look like that?" And it's like, what kind of supersets are you doing? What kind of like drop sets? And I'm like, "Dude, I do CrossFit, man."
Yeah.
And it's like, I know that's tough for people to hear because maybe they just don't get the same results, or they've tried to go that route. But the reality is just like, I haven't found anything better for my body type.
Yeah. And that's a lot of it. Finding what works for who
exactly.
you
And
are.
that's the thing. It could be different for them.
Yeah.
You know, that's the reality. But you know, it's like I haven't found anything to where I feel great. I feel healthy. I feel like the right energy levels. I feel like very content. And then walking into a casting room or walking into one of these projects and being like, "Yeah, I'm ready to do this."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that you said that, because one thing I've found actually since doing Lionheart Radio, and I'm interviewing all these like great coaches and people and like top performers, it's like one thing I'm finding is that the worst thing you could do for yourself is have a dogmatic approach.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like biology is so fucking infinitely varied.
Yep.
That there's no one size fits all. There's no, it doesn't matter. Like your approach might be macros and my approach might be keto. Yep. Actually, that's probably exactly what it is. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's just you can't go at it like thinking because for you, I remember back in the day when we were considering doing a strength progression, right?
Yep.
We were talking about doing some American volume training.
Yep.
And you were like, actually, like, I'm getting too big for, like, I can't, this isn't going to be good for my career if I continue on this path.
Yeah. And that's funny. It's like that give and take sometimes. I mean, I'll have my moments where it's just like I want to perform well with a lot of these competitions within CrossFit, and make those, like, you know, make sure to hit those certain goals. But the reality is, like, sometimes I'm like, shoot, I gotta look like I'm 190 pounds when I walk around at like 215. I gotta look like I'm 190 pounds here in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like sometimes it doesn't always coincide. It's like, yes, I would love to do these CrossFit competitions and be just a massive freak out there, but the reality is, it's like I gotta still worry about a paycheck every so often. So it's like I gotta kind of like play with them back and forth. It's the pros and cons game, right? It's like, how much do I love CrossFit versus how much do I need to continue kind of doing these things in the one-offs, with the photo shoots and with the modeling. But yeah, no, the reality is just like I've never. First, let's just say this: I got very lucky. I got very lucky with, as far as like my training's concerned, my diet's concerned. My central nervous system, everything that applies to my athleticism, and that just kind of transitioned into, of course, the modeling. But the reality is, like, I want to perform at my best levels for things that I love, and that's mainly CrossFit. And when we got into that training and stuff like that, I felt myself getting big really quick, and I was just like, I have my agent call me. He's like, "Why don't you fit in these freaking pants? You know, your legs are too big. Or, why don't you fit in this jacket?" And it's like, I do this, but I know you want me to do this. She goes, "Well, you're missing out on this paycheck because you're doing this." So it's like, it's a give and take. It absolutely is. But you got to remember what you love, and it's like my heart is first with CrossFit for that stuff. So yeah.
I don't want to compare tactical fitness to modeling because that's going to piss people off. But, don't. But broad scheme of things, something that's important is to think about is like, why are you working out, which is like everything you just laid out. It's the same thing I do when I coach tactical athletes, and me and George Briones from CrossFit Double Barrel talked about this because he coaches for Softly. It's like, at the end of the day, are your workouts the end all be all, which if you're competing in CrossFit they are, but a lot of times people are doing these things like CrossFit literally just to improve the other functions of their life, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing, I think we get so much involved in the competitive side of CrossFit that we forget people are just like using this for either, like, you know, a lacrosse team that they play for, or a basketball team because they want to improve their vertical jump or their ability to run down the court a little bit better. Those are things I love. Those are things I love to hear, you know, when they're applying it to maybe their sport, and that's what it should be, you know. It gets so much focus and so much concentration for a lot of these athletes when they come in, they go, "Oh, well, I'm done playing lacrosse at the at like a collegiate level. I just want to focus all my attention to CrossFit and competing in this realm." I'm like, dude, no. Go apply your fitness to that sport. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And the same goes hand in hand, I think, with a lot of the these triathletes or these guys that come in to see me. They're like, "Oh, well, you're a CrossFit coach." It's like, yeah, absolutely, but I can help, you know, gear whatever kind of programming and training that you need for that sport, to like, and then still using some of the CrossFit methodologies. It's just, it's tough for people to wrap their heads around that because of how CrossFit is.
Yeah, it is. And I tell people, actually, I just our last mini-sode I just did was about picking a coach, and it's like, it doesn't matter where that coach's methodologies began, whether that was in the quote-unquote global gym or whether he comes from a CrossFit background. But if that's all he knows, you have a problem.
Exactly.
Right.
No, and that's the truth. And the thing is, it's like, there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there too, to where I will never speak poorly about a CrossFit coach or someone who's just gone through a 2-day seminar or something like that and being like, "Oh yeah, I can train everybody and anybody now. Give me LeBron James, I'll figure it out for him." No, absolutely. I think, I mean, especially probably some of the professionals that you spoke with, there was some kind of previous either, you know, Division 1 program that they spoke to, some kind of lineage with what that they've done coaching wise and stuff like that. But the reality is just like, people see these things, they see like, "Oh, okay, I can do this." Absolutely. It takes a 2-day seminar, I can, you know, get an affiliate and call it good. That's not the best case of action or course of action, because the reality is just like, you create a lot of bad, a lot of just negative, right? And a lot of negative within the community. I'm never going to say no to someone trying to shoot for their goals. Make sure there's those foundational pieces first and foremost. Like myself, I mean, I started off, of course, playing collegiate sports, but after that I got into the strength and training side of it, and I was working with some high school level kids as an assistant strength coach with them. And outside of just doing that and wanting to continue to do that, CrossFit came along, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
This is basically what I'm doing. Just
Right.
we're going to
They
label
just
it CrossFit
packaged it
now.
and sold it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
we're going to label it CrossFit now.
Yeah, without a doubt. So you played college football?
I did, yeah. Played collegiate football at a JUCO level. Later got picked up at a Division I level. Finished up, broke about every damn bone in my body.
Oh,
doing
really?
So,
I didn't know
yeah. I had a blast with it, man. The reality, it's really tough, especially at the age of 20, 21, when something that you put so much energy into and so much time and commitment, and all of a sudden that's taken away from you in a second. I think that's a huge undertaking, especially at that age. I thought I was going to be fine, but the reality is just like you go through a little bit of depression because now you have to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
And I know that's tough for a lot of these athletes coming out of school when that's just not the reality anymore.
Sure.
You know, it's like that's what they've thrown all their eggs into that basket, and now they're looking at something where, shoot, it's like maybe I do have to go get my degree. Maybe I do have to look at like doing something else or figuring out what's next outside of football, basketball, whatever sport you are playing.
CrossFit.
CrossFit,
Yeah.
right? No, you can apply it now to these kids. I mean, there's a lot of kids. I mean, you go through enough injuries, your body says no to enough of these things. Sooner or later, it's gonna be like, all right, man, we got to figure out what's next on the docket, because the reality is just like it's not always going to be there.
Right. So if you're training a kid in a college, a field sport or a court sport, right?
Okay.
Now, I think it's a good argument you could make that CrossFit would not be the best way to, or the best methodology to use, simply for the fact that a lot of CrossFit takes place in one plane of motion.
Correct.
And when you start switching from side to side and your joints and your ligaments aren't used to that
Yep.
dynamic movement,
Absolutely.
you start getting tears and things like that. So I'm curious what your thought is, since I know you've actually worked with these people.
No, absolutely. And since the introduction of the high volume box jump, I want to kill every CrossFit coach that programs them.
So a lot of coaches don't agree with the high volume box jump.
You know what? The box jump was intended for power output, right? Explosive power output, especially within like athletes and things of that nature. And when you go high volume, you really take those fast twitch muscles and you're trying to slow them down. You're trying to create a variable that isn't intended at that rate.
Right.
We get to watch it, you know, the guys do it at the game. We see this rebound effect, and we're like, oh, that's how you make them faster. This is how you can do more and stuff like that. That's how you blow out Achilles, and that's how you mess up your body pretty good. Your
Right.
knees, your joints, and things of that nature. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. They're used to doing it but then you get your, you know, your civilian or your general public, and they go to do this stuff, and they're blowing Achilles out, and they're screwing their bodies up. You're correct. And the way that I usually work with, you know, either the members in my box or those athletes that might be playing those sports is I try to, and this is basically coming off of what I learned and basically where I came from. I'm a big advocate of John Wellborn.
Yep.
You know,
CrossFit
power athlete,
football.
exactly.
Yep.
CrossFit football, doing all those things, and making the body either move laterally on occasion, you know, to open those things up, but at the same time always making the athlete or the member more explosive or more powerful in their movement. The endurance stuff will come, right? We can always make you a little bit, I shouldn't say faster, but we can always get to that point to where we can extend a workout, we can find those endurance paces.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's like it's really tough to develop power, it's tough to develop speed, it's tough to develop strength, right?
Yep.
And if we are honing in on those three components, I think that's like probably the most critical when trying to help those athletes get to that next level. And doing it so in a well-organized fashion that's going to help them perform either on the court or on the field.
Yeah, strength definitely takes a lot longer to build than.
Yeah. And the thing is like you want to make sure the body awareness is there. It's like I can get an athlete with an incredible nervous system. I'll watch him move and I'll be like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like that guy or that girl is going to play at the next level.
That's
right?
like what you call your natural, right?
Exactly.
Your
And that's
athlete.
genetic abilities, very great with body awareness. It's a different level of intelligence, right? And we
Yep.
see it sometimes with like these kids, these 18, 19-year-old kids. There might be a little bit of that kind of like giraffe baby leg kind of going on where they're not quite aware. But the thing is, it's like you watch their feet move, you watch their ability to move in space, and you're just like, okay, yes.
Yeah.
Now, how do I make that athlete better?
Yeah.
Right?
They have proprioception without training it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing is like it's focusing on their gifts, right? I don't want to say it's taken away from the constantly varied stuff, you know, and the functional movements at high intensity, but the reality is just like you want to focus those gifts skills and give them better aptitudes to those gifts. Now, does that mean high volume box jumps? No. Does that mean handstand walks? Absolutely not. Getting inverted double unders? No, you don't need those things. Absolutely, the coordination can be involved, but the thing is just like you want them moving on a power output that might be smaller windows, but basically breaking down their central nervous system in a way they would do on the field. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if you break it down, not with complex movements like a snatch or something, you're in more of a safe environment.
And it's funny. It's like it took me the longest time, and I know the clean, all right, specifically the clean was developed to be caught in a squat, right?
Sure.
Unless you're doing power cleans, which we did a ton of power cleans, right? Especially throughout football training, always in the weight room
football,
and stuff like
sure.
that. Yeah, and it was this explosive.
We did a deadlift into a reverse curl, but yeah,
exactly,
basically,
right? And that time in age we probably were deadlift into a reverse curl. The reality was, is like we would go back and forth in the weight room. We'd watch these guys stroll up to their 315, 3 wheels on the bar and stuff like that. They'd go to huck that thing up, come off the hip, catch it in a half squat, and almost kind of catch it almost into a full squat. And we'd be like, dude, you just got ran over.
Yeah, in football, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And see, we would apply that term exactly as we would in the weight room. It's like, dude, you just got ran over. You didn't accept the blow.
Right.
And so it took me forever to get over the fact that, it's okay to squat in a clean. When the reality is like I powered everything for God knows how many years.
Yeah.
And so that's why my power clean is still incredible. But the reality is just like, it goes back to like, I don't want to get ran over because we applied it on the field, right? Yeah. Okay, big explosive hips, driving through, accepting the blow, and then running the person over. Okay,
right.
If you're tackling, if so on and so forth, right? But that was the thing. It was just like, how do I mimic now that same modality on the field, but in the weight room? Power cleans, power snatch, things of that nature, where you're not asking everybody to squat completely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially like I think the big problem is if you're underdeveloped with your mobility and things, I just don't know that the risk and the reward line up.
It doesn't. And the thing is it might look cool, it might look super awesome to do certain things, but especially if you're an athlete that's focused on a sport, it's just there's certain levels or certain movements in CrossFit that are just not needed.
Yeah,
right? That's
sure.
the reality. It's like, if I have a gymnast that she's, trying to make an Olympic team or something like that, or a traveling team, it's like absolutely we can focus on your inversions and how well you move with like a set of uneven bars on the rings, things of that nature. It's like but a field sport athlete, I don't need to put you on the rings.
Right.
If you're a pitcher, last thing I want to do is do that to you. You know, it's like there's no need for a muscle up.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the reality. It's tough to get kids away from that kind of stuff. It's like I don't need to blow out your shoulder doing this. And then your coach coming to me like, why the hell did you blow up my kid's shoulder?
Right. Well, that's the hardest thing that I'm struggling now because I'm like, all right, I got to start putting CrossFit back into my routine a little bit more since this Wadapalooza thing's coming up fast. But I'm struggling with things like muscle-ups because I'm like, why am I doing this, right? Because there's transfer in so many things, and muscle-ups is fucking not one of them.
No. I mean, there's a million different ways I can figure out how to dip and pull versus doing a muscle-up. Absolutely. It looks cool. Everybody loves a great muscle-up pick. And
so
the reality
catch a ring behind you.
Oh.
Just torque your shoulder
through
for
that,
nothing.
Shoulder's gone, elbows like half tweaked. Yeah,
Right.
No. I mean, and it's like the hopes of like a lot of people starting CrossFit. It's like, I really want to do one of those. I really want to get it, like a great muscle up. The reality is just like, it might look cool, but at the end of the day, if you don't have like years of gymnastics training or have the body awareness to do so, it's really not going to be for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's tough for people to wrap their heads around that.
So knowing what you know then with everything that you've done so far, with your background and then also with the current athletic stuff that you've been doing.
Yeah.
How has do you program for Stay Classy?
I do.
Okay, how has your programming, I guess, progressed? Are there movements like high volume box jumps that you don't program for the general population, or do you stick to the CrossFit kind of prescription?
Yeah, you know what? And I mean, I have people come to me all the time that, especially members that are just like, we love the programming, we love the direction it heads, and all the different variables that are involved of it. And the thing is, it's like I always try to get a little bit more out of them. And when I say that, it's like, so what do you think our focus is? What do you think we're trying to do here? Why am I, why are you paying X amount of dollars to come here and get this kind of programming? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's tough for people to wrap their heads around that, right? And it's tough to see like actually what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to like make them better either in their fitness or just in their lives, right?
Yeah.
And I would say probably there's a much larger focus on their ability to get stronger. develop a healthy core, develop a healthier posterior chain, all those things that are involved in making those metcons easier, right, for them. All the fun stuff. It's like people come in, they just, you can see it all the time. They'll kind of like screw around and say, oh, we got heavy back squats. I'll operate those percentages next week. It's like, I'll just, I'll kind of get through this as best I can just so I can get to the fun stuff where I'm moving fast and moving quick and sweating my ass off.
Right.
I don't know how many times I got to tell my members and people, especially the first time coming in, I was like, you want to get better at this stuff?
Yep.
Perform well here, right? Break your central nervous system down here, put a heavy barbell on your back, load in the front rack, let's pull a heavy, let's feel good here first and foremost. You want to feel taxed. You want to feel beat up in this portion, in our strength portion, whatever it might be, to get to that next level where you can move quickly through these workouts and it doesn't seem like it's a 20-minute workout anymore when it should be a 10-minute workout for you. The way I also program is, it's like you have to program, I think, to your top level athletes. It's not that I discourage,
and then scale for everybody else.
Exactly. It's not that I discourage people to move at like an RX or as prescribed workout. The reality is just like I provide them with different scalable options. It's like usually the way I program, there's different levels, right? I'll provide certain different movements for people that might just be getting used to it, just because you got to temper those people, right? You got to make sure that they're still feeling great about the workout and it's falling all within the realms of like their capabilities. And sometimes it doesn't go over well, and sometimes as a good coach you got to be like, dude, let's make it lighter, let's make it easier for you, and then we'll get there, to that level.
Yeah, because you get those assholes like me. Day one, I'm like, I'm not scaling anything.
I got this.
I'm never going to scale a workout.
It's so funny. And the thing is now it's like, we can get into that all damn day, but the reality is just like, you get both sides of the coin where people are just like, you know what, let's keep the barbell super light, or I don't want to get bulky, so let's not do that, and I don't want to injure this, it's like I'm feeling this. It's like people get comfortable. You get comfortable way too quick, and all of a sudden they're asking me like, why aren't they losing weight? Why don't they feel better about themselves? Why aren't they seeing their numbers go up? And I'm like, because you're coasting, man.
Yeah,
you're
not putting in the work.
This thing. Yeah, exactly. So you get both sides of it, man. Honestly, I hate saying this, but I'd rather deal with the athlete that needs to be pulled the reins back a little bit versus the one that just never wants to, test their limitations.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the trouble with a personal trainer, and I think you get a little bit less of that with CrossFit because people are a little more like, I show up and I do the class. Yeah. Even if they coast it, they just know that when they show up, they're going to do the class. Right. Whereas when your personal training, I remember back in the day when I was training, I remember I put a ton of time into setting this whole circuit up for this girl, and I go there and I explain to her, all right, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. I'm running around and I'm showing her movements and stuff. And I was like 20, so it was probably garbage at the time. But I put a ton of work into it. Yeah. And I get done and she's like, do I have to do that? And I'm like, fucking no, you don't have to do that. You just pay me and walk out.
Get the hell out of here. Yeah. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. But the reality, and the thing is, it's like, I love CrossFit for what it's created. It's created a bunch of different avenues within fitness. And the thing that scares me the most is the people's want or uncertainty to question, right? It's just like, you have to question your coaches. You have to question the programming, the training.
Hey fam, I wanted to take a quick break from the show to talk to you about an experience that I had and also a product that I created out of that experience to solve a problem that I had. So for 4 years, I was an instructor at a military selection program. What that meant is that I would run and I would swim with the students, and then I would also do physical training. And I actually designed a lot of that physical training, and it was more of, CrossFit-y circuit, body weight type stuff, running, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, the normal calisthenics that you would see in the military. At that same time, I was also training for CrossFit myself, which means anybody who's ever tried to compete in CrossFit knows that getting really good at all of those different disciplines takes a lot more time than it looks like from the outside, maybe. At least it looked like for me. So once I got in, I realized, okay, I had to train 2 times a day or more in order to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. Now, what that meant is I would have to train before work, then I would go to work and I would train with the students, and then after work, I would also train again for myself for my second session of the day. And of course, I tried to line them all up so that I wasn't just getting wrecked on all fronts, but that's a difficult thing to do. So for the most part, it was just a ton of volume, and it was really hard to recover. Now, in an attempt to recover, I started realizing, okay, I have to start making up for all of these different lifestyle factors like sleep and how I eat and my nutrition and my supplements. And so supplements was one of the first things that I went to. But I realized in order to get ready for the next workout, I had to eat, I had to take
supplements that I couldn't, for things like creatine that I couldn't get from the food. And then on top of that, I was tired, so I had to drink coffee so I could get my mind right for the day, for the next workout. And it was really this like nightmare scenario where I was constantly trying to take things in just in order to stay even and feel okay going into the next thing. What I started to find is all of the supplements that I was taking off this shelf were chocked full of fillers. They either had things that I didn't want in them, or it didn't have enough of what I actually wanted in it. So I started researching all of these different supplements, and I started researching what was actually in the labels, and I realized all of these different fillers are chocked full of things like gluten that make me feel like shit. They would make me feel bloated, or essentially just, you don't want to have to recover from a recovery is what I found. I have enough fucking recovering in my life just trying to work out 2 or 3 times a day. So what I started doing is started sourcing and buying all of the raw materials myself for all of the products that I found had proven studies that were not backed by supplement companies. So I mean proven results like creatine. Helps with strength, endurance, recovery, and it's very studied. Very widely studied, I should say. So I started sourcing these materials, putting them together, and then taking them myself. So that way I knew exactly what I was putting in my body, and I knew that everything I put in my body was proven to work, at least on some level. And then I started giving it out to all my friends and all of my teammates that also worked out with me. And what I started to find is that there was starting to be a really big demand for this product. Now, giving it out, I realized that got to a point where I was working out 3 times a day, working in the middle of those times, and then I would get home at night and I would have to be in my garage and I'd be making all this product. So that just got really hard. So we eventually outsourced the manufacturing, and I told people, hey, you guys are going to have to pay me for this product if you continue to want it. And that's exactly what we did. So we outsourced manufacturing, we started calling it Lionheart Refuel, and we started selling it on a much bigger scale. So what you get in that is branched chain amino acids, glutamine, creatine. These are all things that have proven to help with the physical recovery. And then for that mental acuity piece, we put caffeine, ginseng, and guarana. Not a lot, not enough to make you buzzed, but just enough to make you kind of have that alert feeling and feel good going into the next workout. So it's nothing on the level of a pre-workout, but more of just a help lift you up once a difficult workout puts you in a mental deficit. So if you guys want to check that product out, you can go to www.lionheartrefuel.com and use code RADIO so that we know you're a listener of the show, and you'll get 10% off. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this, and now we'll get back to the show. All right,
what are we talking about?
I don't know. But you did make a good point, which is like doing the work, like doing the heavy squats, like challenging your demand there, your neurological demand there. And then when you get to the Metcons, there's a certain point where, and there's a law of diminishing return here, but there's a certain point where if you have a 135-pound squat, right, or you have a 225-pound squat, the 225-pound squat guy is going to perform better when it comes to body weight squats.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
in the Metcon.
Yeah.
Which is why people need to be putting water in that well.
Exactly.
Before.
No, and that's so true. And it's funny because I'll get it all the time. People are like, well, I want to move my body weight better, or I want to move it in a more efficient manner. It's like, so why would I want to like be throwing around all this heavy ass weight? And it's just like, the reality is just like, you're just becoming stronger. You're asking your body to complete a little bit more by accepting the load, right, and making sure it can move at a better rate, versus like you thinking like, hey, I'm just putting on more mass, not gonna move it now. It's like, no, that's not the reality. It's just like, it's gonna make you stronger throughout that Metcon, right?
Yeah. And that's actually, so that's Brian McKenzie's whole thing with CrossFit Endurance, is he has guys that he trains for the 100-mile distance and running.
Yeah.
But he said his top 100 miler, he doesn't have them run longer than 27 miles, I think.
Oh, wow.
But they do it at such a fast pace. He does so much work at that high heart rate. For example, if you do a ton of work at a 6-minute pace, the theory, and I think it's probably pretty well proven with his work now, is that when you're running 100 miles at an 8-minute pace, you can sustain it for so much longer.
Yep.
And you don't have to do that LSD cardio, that long, slow distance stuff, because you're, and it's the same thing with squats, right? Like if you do that work at the beginning at a higher rate, once you go to do it with your body weight, you'll look better.
You're going to feel better about it, absolutely. Yeah. And it's tough for people to wrap their heads around that, because they're like, oh, I'll just put in the time here, I'll put in the time here, I'll put in the time here. It's like, dude, it's like you can make that 20-minute workout a 10-minute workout if you just knew the reality of it all. It's just like, and people just don't, it's tough for people to wrap their heads around that, just because they think, oh, if it's more weight for me to move, I'm just going to be more sluggish. I'm not going to get to that point. But the reality is just like, it's just going to make you stronger, so you're capable of moving at that distance or time.
I think CrossFit as a whole woke people up to that too. Is like, you don't need to be in the gym for 2 hours to look real good.
No.
Or to get a lot of work done.
Right. And it's like, so since the whole calling out part.
Yeah.
You know what? I am one of those guys. It's like an hour and a half max, and I got to get the hell out of there, right? It's like I'm stir crazy at that point. And now I'm starting to run.
Yep.
A little bit more. And that takes time, dude.
It does. It does take time.
It takes time. And I'm just trying to find times in my schedule where it's like, all right, I got to do 20 minutes a day, or all right, I got to do 30 minutes a day. And it's just like, it's tough, man. It's tough to schedule those things because it's like you still want to perfect, or you still want to like hone in on those skills and make sure that you're hitting those certain mile markers, time markers, so on and so forth, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure once it comes race day.
Yeah.
And that's probably the toughest part now, is just like trying to find more time to train.
Yep.
You know.
But I do think the advantage that you have, and I think the advantage that anybody could have if they're going to try one of these ultra distance events. I talked about this with Dr. Andy Galpin on one of our episodes. Is like by doing a good strength training program and doing a lot of high intensity work, you can get not just inch your volume down, like you can foot your volume down. Like you can do a lot less volume if the intensity is there, if the mechanics are there, if the strength, the baseline aerobic capacity is there. If all these things that make you a good athlete are in line, you will be able to get away with a lot less volume than someone off the street who is like 9 to 5 at a desk and going to try to do one of these events.
And I honestly, I will take that every day over more.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's like if you can give me a more intense output with mechanically sound movement, I'll take that any day over doing 3 to 4 workouts. It's like if you're just going to stumble through 3 to 4 workouts and give me a half-ass effort, it's like give me the intensity. You know how much more that's going to give you, as far as just development-wise versus, oh yeah, I got to spend 3 hours in the damn gym doing these 8 different workouts. No, absolutely not.
Right.
It's just going to break you down. It's going to beat you up. And now you're looking at a caloric deficit, your sleep deprivation, you're not sleeping at night, and you're coming to me and like, Pete, what's wrong? I'm like, you're screwing around, man.
Yeah, right. That's where I think most people could benefit or make the most gains, and even if they're like a gym rat or someone that works out a lot now, I think where they could make the most gains is by looking for efficiencies.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's like efficiency in movement, and then efficiency through movement, but at the same time at an intense rate. I mean, that's why we call it CrossFit, right? It's not to just kind of like, it's just drag ass through a workout and it's like, oh, get through it. It's like, no, go hard. If you want certain aerobic capacities, if you want to hit those certain goals, if you're crushing yourself and moving fast, absolutely. People, especially in my gym, they come to me, it's like, oh, so you just do the programming. It's like, but I see you're like crushed after other things. It's like some of these workouts, they might be tough. It's like, dude, I don't care if it's, Fran, I don't care if it's like, a hero workout or something like that. If the reality is, it's like, if you're moving hard, you can make any workout a terrible workout.
True.
Right? And it's just like, I don't care. It's like, if there's the proficiencies aren't there, maybe stuff like that. It's like, you scale to a certain level, you move at a certain rate, it's going to hurt. Yeah. Right? And that's just going to make you better.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I'd imagine, for sure, a lot of people that are doing CrossFit and probably coming to you, they really just want to look better naked, right? And so my question is, are you one of those people that believe form follows function? Or do you need to put specific work in order to, do you think, to work aesthetics?
Yeah. I'm honestly, this is now speaking for like people I work with and stuff like that.
Right,
and then,
clients.
Clients, and then absolutely for myself. I'd have to say I probably align more with form follows function. Like I said, it's like I've been asked, like, what do you do for your tricep workout, or what do you do? It's like, I do a shit ton of burpees, and I put heavy barbells over my head. That might not be for everybody, but the reality is, it's like we can't always compare ourselves to those individuals that we see in the magazines or that we want to be. The reality is, like, I can give you the best form of you, right?
Yep.
And through CrossFit, I found that is the best direction, or the most, I would say, like the healthiest and probably the most pragmatic avenue for people.
Yep.
And
for general preparedness fitness.
Exactly, absolutely. Yep. And the thing is, it's like, yes, absolutely. At the end of the day, we want that, oh shit, what have you done effect, right, from your friends. It's like, yeah,
of course, everybody wants it.
Yeah, how do I get that, right? And then the reality is just like anything that I've seen, anything I've done, especially with the people I've worked with, it comes from those certain levels of CrossFit. When it gets into like the more competitive stuff and like the proficiencies in those, absolutely, it's like we can maybe then hone in on those things. But the reality is just like, if you're taking that hour class a day, I'm spoon feeding you, and you're listening, and your intentions are are forthright and you're asking more and more of that situation, you're going to get there. You're going to get there at that point. It's funny. I know it. It happens every Sunday when we have an open gym. I'll see the guys bicep curl. I'll see the guys bench press. And that's fine. You know, we always like a little show of muscle, but the reality is just like, I know you might go out there and do those things. It's going to be the most beneficial. Maybe not, but at the same time, it's like, do you, man.
You got to like it too, right? Just like you were saying when you were getting ready for bodybuilding. Like, if you're making yourself miserable, then what's even fucking the point in the first place?
Exactly. And that's the thing. If you can get an extra head turn for your sweet bicep curls, do it, man. Do it. It's like, if that's your thing, do it, you know?
I mean, the reason we're doing all of this, right, is to improve life. So it's like, you got to get that.
Exactly. Find and that's the thing. If it makes you happy, man, go ahead and do it. You know, that's the reality.
Yeah, for sure. So the final question that we ask everybody on every show is the Lionheart kicker.
Okay.
Typically, I tell people what the kicker is before the show, so I don't put them on the spot. So you're probably fucked.
All right, here we go.
All right. So knowing everything that you know, with everything that you've done up until this point, if you could give one piece of advice and it was guaranteed that it'd be translated to every language, it was guaranteed that everybody in the world would hear this piece of advice. They might not all follow it, but they would definitely hear it. What would you tell them?
Ooh.
Woo! Yeah, it's heavy.
That is heavy, man.
Wally, thanks. For you guys that are listening and you hear like fucking horns and shit going off, we're outside of a gym right now in downtown San Diego, so we'll do what we can to take out some of the background stuff, but you know, makes it real.
You know what? The one piece of advice, training, life, everything that could be involved, anything that makes you happy, man, is I would say cultivate the relationships that you feel help make you a better athlete, person, and just member of society, man. It's just that's probably my biggest takeaway, or what I've learned probably in the past couple of years, is just accepting those individuals as family, and learning from them, growing with them, having them push me in ways that I've never thought like capable of myself.
Yep.
And then just helping them through their journey too at the same time. It's like we always want to think self. It's like, how do I improve this? How do I get better at this? It's like the true joy comes in watching those people succeed as well with you.
Yep.
So whether it be in fitness, whether it be in life, anything and everything involved, it's just the continuation of developing those relationships.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I could see, whether it be with your coach, a mentor, a brother, a sister, girlfriend, boyfriend, all the things involved. It's like, make sure you're taking the time to develop those, because the reality is just like, I think that's like the essence of happiness, is you know, having those relationships and making sure that you're growing with them.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's what's going to move the needle for you too in growth,
For sure.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think, and then part of it, you know, surrounding yourself with people that get it, and you alluded to it, but part of it is definitely being open to the feedback that those people give you. Yeah. Because that could be rough.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's a good friend, you know?
Right.
Someone's going to tell you, dude, it's like you're acting like a fucking tool bag.
Right.
You know, you're acting like a complete asshole. It's like, those are the friends you want. It's like, dude, you got a booger hanging. It's like, oh, all right, that's a good friend.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
But the ones that also aren't always going to tear you down, the ones that are going to tell you to move, and the ones that are going to tell you to, like, try this, try that. You know? It's like, that's the reality. It's like, that makes like a great partner, a great friend, a great whatever. You know, it's like that relationship is something you should hold on to and know it and see it for its value.
Sure.
Always.
Yeah. So for people that are listening to this and super interested in you and the things that you have going on, where can they follow along with your journey? And
you know what? The best and easiest, it's like I'm terrible with all the social media stuff, but I feel like I gotta like pay attention to it on a regular basis.
Yeah. It's life now.
I mean, you can find me on Facebook, Peter Pisani. Stay Classy CrossFit, of course, is the gym in San Diego that I help run and co-own and all that fun stuff. And then on Instagram, and everybody always asks me about this damn name, but that's fine. It's like, it's Pistoled, Pistoled, Pete, P-E-T-E.
Yeah. Pistol Pete was taken or what?
It was taken. And it's like, everybody alludes to the fact, you must be really good at pistols, man. I suck at pistols. I am terrible at pistols. I really didn't think Instagram was going to take off. So I was just like, I'm going to just pick a dumb name. And Pete Maravich, Pistol Pete, 80s basketball player, man. I was the biggest fan of him. White guy who could handle the rock.
Yeah.
And he was like my hero growing up, and I used to watch all these old videos of him, and I was like, I'm just going to steal his name.
Right.
And it's like thinking nothing of it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Pistol Pete. I'm like, son of a bitch.
Now you're too far.
Too far.
You're too far.
And the funny part is the guy that owns my name DMs me on the thing. He goes, I have Peter Pisani. Do you want it? I was like, yeah, man, go give it to me.
Yeah.
He was trying to charge me
Sell
X
it.
amount of dollars for my name. And I'm like, dude, hold on to it. It's yours.
Yeah.
Hold on to it.
Oh, man. I just changed my screen name from when it was matching my AOL name back in the day.
Oh, yes.
Because I didn't even know Instagram was a social thing when I got it. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
right,
cool, you
yeah.
can fucking make your pictures look cooler.
Yeah.
You know
That's all
what I mean?
it was, right?
Now it's like fucking my
we should
business
all
dies
go back
and lives
to the
on it.
AOL, the AIM names, dude. Some of those
Great.
good ones, like Richard Jokes or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Dick Jokes, 321 or something.
Yeah.
Those are always the best.
Yeah. I was dating like gymnastics QT
Yes,
6'4" or
yes,
some bullshit. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for being on, dude. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
All
Always.
right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Lionheart Radio. I hope that the information from today's show will make you fitter, happier, and healthier. For the show notes of this episode and every episode, head to www.lionheartrad.io. Yep, just like Lionheart Radio. And please, if you have the time, head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to know that we're on the right track in delivering you reliable information and value. As always, feedback is welcomed. If you have any comments on the show or like to suggest a guest, send me an email at rick@luavive.com. That's LUAVIVE.com. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.
Bitch, I feel good. Don't I look stupendous? My shine is so endless, and shit you can do to end this. Even when I'm dead, niggas still gon' bump that chip shit. Coke, white, Escalade on cinches for you dipshit. So you won't forget this. Midwest nigga be the coldest. Cleveland is